Hello, ladies and germs. Welcome back once again to the Top 10 Movie Podcast. I'm Mulley, he's Mike, and we are here in our regular establishment to give you our latest Top 10 list, the Top 10 Most Iconic Antagonists. And Mike, you had mentioned you had a great number of different antagonists to choose from, up to over 30 at one point, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, we've already done the most iconic protagonists, so it just kind of made sense to follow up with antagonists, which are villains of the story, if you will. In doing this list, I ended up with a total of 32, but I was not going to pull a Mully and come in with all 32.
Wow, already calling
Yeah,
me
because
out.
listen, I don't break rules, bro. I'm the rule follower. I'm the guy that hates to get in trouble. And fans
Can't have two of those.
no. So I narrowed it down to 10, which, wasn't easy to do, but here we are. I made it happen.
And I only have like three bonus ones. Actually, the reason I even have bonus ones on mine is because I do think we are going to overlap.
All right.
I really do.
All right, I got you.
But if we don't overlap, then I'll just do a quick mention of it.
And listeners, y'all should take bets to see if we go crossover at all. Because I said no. So let's take some bets and see what happens.
Okay, so we're going to do the more traditional format on this. We know that if you were a listener to the show, that we have tried the split 5 and 5 before, and on some of the longer takes that we have on some of these lists, that works better. This particular one, we had so many choices that we decided to go ahead and do the 10 and 10. So Mike has a list of 10, I have a list of 10, and we'll try not to crowd your ears for more than an hour, if possible, with our takes. Although you may like the longer podcast, we feel like the hour mark or just underneath is the sweet spot for us. So let's start with the number or the first one you have on the list. I know, as you know, we don't normally rank our choices, but we do have a list of 10, so it's just normal to number them.
We should actually do a rank one day just to see how it goes.
And I think most people would expect us that we are ranking based on the top 10.
Yeah, but if you expected that, then you should be on the podcast. It's our podcast.
If you haven't been listening, this is your first one, and then we don't rank. We don't rank usually.
Oh yeah, shout out to the first time listeners, I guess.
Yeah, there might be some people starting with this. And you know you need to go listen to the top 10 protagonist list if you're listening to the antagonist list.
Facts.
But all right, Mike, let's start with your number one. Who do you have as your most iconic antagonist in an unranked list?
So what I'm going to do this because I did have, like I said, 32.
Mm-hmm.
I actually kept the number that I had for the name.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be 10, but it's going to be a different number for the names.
Okay.
Because it was based on the 32 list.
Was that 32 list ranked?
No,
Okay.
of course not. No, I got to speed.
The numbers objective.
All right, fine.
Doesn't matter.
Fine. You want to hate on my
No.
That's fine.
I don't want you to say number 32 is, but this isn't ranked, and this is a list of 32.
32 on the OG list. All right, forget it. All right. First one.
No, it's quirky. Go ahead. Do it.
No, now you got me confused. Maybe I shouldn't do it.
No, do it.
All right, so number 3 on my OG list, number 1 in the actual 10,
Beautiful.
is to me he's one of the most iconic characters. Period. Whether side of you said to land on protagonist, antagonist, it's Michael Myers from the Halloween franchise.
Okay, yeah. See, this is exactly what I wanted. I was like, Mike is going to do the horror stuff. I know that you didn't. That was like probably your only one based on what we talked about. But I knew you'd have the horror stuff covered. So I could have easily picked a bunch of horror people that I never watched because I don't watch horror.
Yeah.
Films. But I figured you'd have a lot of them. But surprised that this is one of them, and maybe the one.
Yeah, if I had to actually rank this list, Michael Myers would be the top antagonist for me.
Okay.
It's my favorite, most beloved horror franchise of all time. I know some people would say Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, or Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, let me just start crossing off my list.
No, the list goes on and on and on. If you're well versed in your horror, gamut, if you will. But to me, I mean, this is 2024, and yes, you will actually hear this episode in the same year.
Yeah. Well, we know it's 2026, and you're listening to this in 2 years from now.
And so right now we're looking at over 40 years of Michael Myers' history in cinema, and this character's popped up in every Halloween movie except Part 3, which was Season of the Witch. They decided to deviate for whatever reason. It has nothing to do with parts 1 through 2 or the ones that come after.
It's such a convoluted history to a lot of these horror
It is,
villains.
and especially once you get past Halloween 4, which is the return of Michael Myers, then the story and the plot starts to go all over the place. So, but the character's been the one constant throughout the entire franchise over 40 years. A couple years ago, they finally wrapped up the new trilogy that brought back Laurie Strode, who was the original Final Girl from 1978, and they wrapped up that whole Michael versus Laurie thread. And there's already, news that they're gonna reboot and start fresh because Michael Myers is also referred to as the boogeyman, and as we all know, you can't kill the boogeyman. So, but for me, Michael Myers is somebody I've actually had nightmares about just over the years of my life.
And that should be a warning sign that you have never taken it seriously for your mental health, my friend. But wait, let me ask you this. This might be a naive question, but has the same person played Michael the entire time?
Not the entire time, because if you watch the movies, Michael, or also known as the Shape in Halloween lore,
The shape.
he's gone through a lot of different physical changes. He always wears the mask, which is based off William Shatner, and the jumpsuit, like the mechanics maintenance man jumpsuit. That's always been the constant. The brown boots, but his physical appearance has deviated over the years, so it's been played by a different actor. Now, the latest trilogy that wrapped up that started in 2018, it was the same actor that played Michael Myers in 1978 and 1981. So, but in between there has been different
How old is
actors.
that dude? Goodness, must be in the
Oh,
60s.
he's definitely in the 60s for sure. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but that's the guy. I don't even know his name. I should know his name. You'd think I would know his name. But anyway, it's Michael Myers. That's number one for me.
Gotcha.
Top 10 most iconic antagonists in movies.
All right, and if you know Michael's the actor's real name, scream it at home. We might hear you.
Scream it at home. I like what you did there.
This is and you went pretty broad, which is good. And a lot of these answers for me are pretty broad answers, as most people will probably come up with. But this one's a deep cut for me. This one, not a lot of people are going to know about. I don't think, and I'm wondering if you, Mike, would agree with me about this one. But my number one on my list, and probably one of the first people that I thought about, and I don't know why, because this is not a movie that I consider to be like one of my favorites, but my first one on my list of the top 10 most iconic antagonist is DEA agent Norman Stansfield from the Leon the Professional movie, played by Gary Oldman.
Wow.
That's a deep cut. But
It's a cult classic movie, though.
it is. And I something about someone who's supposed to be a police officer, but is a DEA agent, a law officer, right? Something about him being unhinged and a killer. That's one that's really scary in a way. On top of that, the fact that he's unhinged in this movie,
Yeah, sign me up.
he is, and it's Gary Oldman, who I think one of our greatest actors today, and someone who dissolves into a role, like he becomes that. Um, in this particular role, he plays a drug addicted DEA agent, and the way that he takes his drug is so iconic. Before he goes into kind of actually, he gets it kind of gets himself in the zone to kill a little bit, and he takes this drug that I forget what it is, but it's a big pill that he has in a pill box, and he pulls the pill out, puts it in his mouth, and before he cracks it in his teeth, he leans his head back and like lets his spine crack a little bit, and then bites into this drug, and it has that sound, that piercing sound of that crack, and then he kind of like shakes his body a little bit, and then he smooths out. It's just a weird, interesting entrance for this character to commit what's going to be homicide soon, and he talks about he likes these quiet moments before the storm. It's really freaky and spooky the way that he talks, and then it's almost a jovial way that he kills, because it's almost like he's listening to music that isn't there. It is insane. It is a performance that has to be seen, that cannot be described adequately on this podcast. But the way that Gary Oldman portrays this character is unlike anything that I'd ever seen before or after. And it's a must watch if we're going to talk about the greatest antagonists of all time. And we're going to talk about some way more iconic ones, I guess. To me, though, this in my mind is an iconic performance of an antagonist, and that's probably a different definition than most people are going to come up with. Like, this might be mostly a popularity contest for us. To me, it's like who portrayed it, who do I still think of when the word antagonist comes to my mind that made them iconic? And in this case, it wasn't a suit that they wore or necessarily something that they like some heinous crime that they performed. It was the performance in itself by the actor, and I've seen him in other things since, and it's just you really appreciate his acting acclimate because of this. So if you haven't seen Leon the Professional, it's worth watching just for Gary Oldman's performance alone, or go on YouTube and look up Gary Oldman the Professional and watch his scenes. It is a freaking master class.
No. Don't tell them to go to YouTube. Tell them to watch the whole movie. It's worth it.
Okay,
The whole
go
movie.
watch the movie. If you haven't seen Leon the Professional, if
classic.
you have, watch it again.
Yeah.
Watch it again.
Great choice. That's a good way to kick off the list.
Thank you.
Number 14 on my OG list.
Yes.
Number 2 on the actual top 10 is iconic if you grew up in the 80s and you're a fan of Rocky. This is Drago. You had Drago? Yo, that's crazy. Okay. All right, I lost a bet.
It's all right.
I definitely didn't think you would have any of mine.
We'll talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Drago to me, you could almost say Clubber Lang from Rocky 3.
A lot of the lists that I looked at, because I do some research, a lot of them had Clubber Lang and not Ivan Drago, which was insane to me, but I don't remember much about Rocky 3.
So here's the thing. Rocky 3 is iconic for a bunch of reasons. Not necessarily even because of the villain. Paulie dies in 3. That's when Apollo Creed decides to train Rocky. It's the whole Eye of the Tiger montage. To me, that's when Rocky becomes Rocky. That's moving forward. But Clubber Lang, he says some really flagrant stuff to Adrian at the press conference, which is what I remember. He talks real crazy to another man's wife. Talking about, hey, come on with a real man. It's out of pocket.
Everything that happens in the UFC now.
Yeah. But for me, Drago is going to be the most iconic antagonist just in that franchise and on this list because he killed Apollo Creed, man.
Yeah.
Like, you killed Apollo Creed had become a hated character in 1 and 2. 2, I think you respected Apollo Creed. The first you hated him. And then by 3, you become to love him because he embraces Rocky. He's like, I'm going to train you to be the best to beat this guy. And also shout out to Carl Weathers, man, because he died this year.
I know.
Yeah, that's tough. But no, Drago killed Apollo Creed, and while they're all trying to tend to his body in the ring, Drago says if he dies, he dies. Like, come on, that makes you iconic right there just because of what you said. And then what ensues is cinematic perfection for the next hour of the movie.
It is.
You're
right about that.
And then for Rocky to go into your home country, beat you, and then have your fans cheering for you instead.
Yes.
It's quite a turn. But yeah, Drago, he was evil, juiced up on roids, which I didn't understand what that was at that age.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. I will say that what takes this Drago to another level is the time when it came out. You have to realize, especially those that didn't grow up in the 80s or don't remember the 80s, one of the two, that there was a real palpable threat as Russia as the other superpower. Like, there were so many movies and television shows that portrayed Russians as the enemy. It was the enemy of our time. That's the height of the Cold War. It was the U.S. against Russia. And Ivan Drago represented everything Russia and everything that we hated about Russia.
Cold, calculated.
Right, and potentially as strong or maybe stronger than us. And that's where the Rocky, the underdog hero with the American flag on his shorts, goes into Mother Russia and not only beats Drago, the representative of their entire nation, earns their respect. And it comes out of the movie with what ultimately kind of what really happened in real life was that we ultimately struck peace with them.
Mm-hmm.
And and that had a lot to do with a lot of other things and the downfall of Russia. But as far as the movie, you didn't come out of that movie hating Russia necessarily. You came out of well, first of all, America all the way, but also it's like, well, the Russians, at least in the movie, they recognized the endurance and the everlasting strength of Rocky and appreciated it. And at least we had that in common. So we came out of that movie with more in common than we went in with Russia. That was a brilliant turn. And this is all done in a movie. which is crazy. I
And in the shortest movie in the franchise, 90 minutes.
didn't even know that.
It's a
That's
lean 90 minutes.
yeah, and it feels full. I mean, there's a lot of iconic things that happen in that movie,
Yeah.
especially with Creed's death, and then you feel it. The training montage, the Ivan Drago has all the technical. Well, looking back on it, it doesn't look very technical, but for the time, it looked like state of the art technical to make him the best athlete ever. And then Rocky's doing it with like tree trunks and pulling chains and all these different things that he finds in a
Rocky's doing the hood. You ever heard of the hood workout?
no.
It's like it's a thing like really in New York. Like you just got guys like in the boroughs in the hood. They pull up to a red light and they just start doing pull ups on the red light.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a hood workout.
And that was the original. So yeah, it's a great choice. Great choice. Ivan Drago and it, on my list number 8, but not by ranking. But yeah, that's it. Okay, well, I better get into some of these heavy hitters here before you take mine these as well. So I need to try and take one from yours. I think this might be one, and I think a lot of people are going to agree about this. And in thinking about this character, so scary. Even the fact that he was behind bars in this particular case, he was behind glass, and that's Hannibal Lecter from the Silence of the Lambs movie from 1991, played by Anthony Hopkins.
You're teetering on horror right here. I'm surprised.
And that's probably my closest one. This is a character that I think as number one on a lot of people's list from what I've seen, and I have to agree. The thing that was so threatening about Hannibal Lecter was that when he was being interviewed by the young what he thought probably was a naive young FBI agent
Clarice, played by Jodie Foster.
That she didn't feel safe behind, even though there was a piece of glass, like thick glass between them. It felt like at any moment he was going to come through that and get her. And the fact that he was able to portray that to his acting, that performance made him who he was, made him one of the most iconic antagonists ever. And when you hear that he's out, you're almost looking around the theater like, geez, is he, and this is that psychopath out there somewhere. But mainly where he won it for me is behind that glass in a cell and just talking. Like if somebody can just scare you to the point that you're going to be that you're afraid for your life, and they're behind glass and they're just talking. It just all you had to do is talk, and it's just the threat of the things that he had done that was enough to like scare you.
And you could tell,
it's a great
like
performance.
in that scene, it's very abundantly clear Hannibal Lecter is much smarter than Clarice in this scene. You can tell the way he speaks to her. He has complete control of that environment, even behind the glass see-through cage that he's in. He's in complete control. Everything he says, she's just like, I don't want to even really be in here, but I gotta be in here, and she just deals with it.
And I thought though there was a part of him that recognized that she was a little bit different than what she portrayed, and that she was a little bit more like him than maybe she even knew, or that she was hiding from him. So I thought it was just a pitch perfect by him, the actor, and it just made him a must on this list, I think.
I agree. And shout out to the writers of that movie as well.
Yeah.
So for sure, great choice. Not on my list.
Wow, I thought for sure that'd be on your list.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm not as big a fan of that movie as some of the lists out there would, portray it to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great movie for sure, but it's just kind of dated. Like there are some older movies that feel dated, and there's some that don't.
Yeah.
This one for me feels dated.
Okay.
Next one for me. This is number 15 on the OG list, number 3 on the top 10 list. I'm gonna go right into it. It's gonna be very brief. The movie's Avatar, and the antagonist is the humans. It's just it's humans, man. Because I mean,
some of the humans.
Yeah, if you've ever had this discussion with me about this movie, then I always refer to Avatar as Pocahontas with instead of Native Americans, 9-foot tall blue people.
Yeah.
I mean, the humans are basically just there to take over their land because they want the resources the blue aliens have. So I was careful not to fall into the trap that a lot of people did when this came out, which is, oh, this movie is amazing. It's one of the greatest movies ever. James Cameron's a genius. James Cameron is a genius, but I think people put him on a higher pedestal than I think he should be.
Mhm.
A couple of reasons, and you may, not agree with this, but he made this movie, but he had the idea of this movie many, many years before it came out in 2009. He had to wait for technology to catch up to his brain to actually make the movie, which I kind of respect, but also I felt like you kind of just waited for 10 years and did nothing and just kind of sat on this one idea, which is like, okay, I don't really know if I agree with that. Because if you have a great mind for cinema and visual storytelling and world building, you could have given us two other projects in between while you waited for technology to catch up, and you didn't. So it's
So
kind of
you
lazy.
big complaint about him is that he didn't produce enough stuff.
Yes, sorry, James. But the other thing is, people touted this as like revolutionary and great story and things like that. Visually, the movie was stunning, and I think this was in the time that that whole gimmicky 3D thing was still in
Thank
effect.
goodness it's dead.
Yeah, and I saw it in 3D, and yes, I agreed. It was cool to see.
It was.
It's just a lot of blue, and I heard the sequel is even more blue. But at the same time, this is just Pocahontas. Like, don't try to make this out to be more than what it really is. This is just a visually stunning Pocahontas. That's really all it is. And if you know the story of Pocahontas, that ties into Thanksgiving, the real story. The humans are the villains in this story, and so I put them on the list. And I almost had other movies that humans were the enemy, but I said, let me stop. I don't want to hate on the human race too much. So, but yeah, that's it. Avatar, the humans are the antagonists.
It was like, all right, I grew. Yeah, and look, you do. They are scummy in that movie. Like, not all of the humans, obviously, but yeah, you do feel like, wow, we're so greedy and we're so. And then it is a direct allegory to how we got this nation,
Right,
the U.S. Right?
yeah.
That's it's the same thing that we just came in and took what we wanted, and that's not. It's obviously we're benefiting from that, but we didn't directly cause it. But yeah, I just difficult. That's a difficult time. Yeah, I get you. I hear you. All right, two, three. Mine's going to be. This is a little weird for me because I'm not a huge fan of this series, although I've seen all the movies. Because once you see one, you got to see all eight. But um, this is someone who was the actual reveal and in battle with this person. I didn't feel lived up to all the hype, but I don't know if it could have ever done so because there were so many movies into it. And his name, he was the bad guy throughout the entire series. And we're talking about Harry Potter and Voldemort.
That's on my list.
Okay, so Voldemort it was this is this menacing character that is the antagonist over all of the Harry Potter films. He's the antagonist. He's always in the background. He's always the one that's. And then they do the reveal of him, and they have that. And I just didn't feel like the climax of it met all of the hype that build up to it. But there's just no doubt that he's one of the most iconic antagonists in cinema history because he is the main antagonist throughout that entire very successful series of movies that even somebody who's not a Harry Potter fan, clearly because I'm missaying it all the time, mispronouncing it, is that you gotta just tip your hat to it, and you had to go see them because it was just part of cinema history. And I think it just by the time that it got to him and him in that final battle, it was just so much buildup that I don't
Yeah,
think you could
I
never
agree.
meet it. I mean, literally, people died during the production run of this movie and had to be replaced and before we ever did get to that final showdown.
Yeah,
They just stretched it out so far.
the MCU did a much better job building up Thanos because when you finally met Thanos, the payoff was perfect. Well, you met him for real because we had seen him in other MCU movies, but
Yeah.
we finally meet him for real in Infinity War. You felt like, okay, this is the guy you've been building up to. I'm afraid.
Yeah. 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 But they just hinted at him. That was just a hint.
Yeah,
This is straight up. He's the bad guy from almost frame
from the
one.
beginning.
Like it's just like he's right from the beginning. It's Voldemort. It's Voldemort, and it's just a whisper how awesome this guy is, or awesome in the sense of how bad he is and powerful he is, and it just didn't feel that it lived up to it in my mind by the end. But it was so teased for so long. I don't think anybody could have. So, but there's no replacing. There's no getting out of the way of this guy because of what he meant to those movies. It should be on the list.
I agree.
On both of our lists.
And I had him because he was just trying to kill a kid. Like, why are you trying to kill a kid?
There you go.
That makes you iconic antagonist in my book. So.
Yeah, they don't try. There are a lot of villains trying to kill children out there. Although Thanos did try to kill like half the population. You know, there's some kids in there.
Oh, for sure.
You know, they kill a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids got dusted.
Facts. Okay, great choice. Obviously, because it was on
It
mine.
was on your list. That's why it's a good choice.
This is number 19 on my OG list. Number 4, top 10 list. You want to talk about deep cuts? This is a more modern film within the last decade. I think actually right at a decade, maybe 2014.
Some of our listeners weren't even born by 2014. What are you talking about? All right, keep going.
No, hold on, fam. If you're listening to this podcast and you're only 10, go outside and play.
Dude, I plan on this podcast throughout the end of time being available. So who knows when they're listening to this?
That's true, but still, if you're 10, I'm judging you. Go outside and play, man. It's okay. Another lesser known movie with some really big stars, recognizable faces. Sci-fi movie in space. If anytime you give me a monster in space, I'm all in. Anytime. This movie's called Life. Stars Ryan Reynolds, Rebecca Ferguson, and Jake Gyllenhaal. Have you ever heard of this at all?
I don't life.
Yeah, it's called Life. Very basic name. I'm a sucker for the one name titles
Okay.
in movies, and of course, I guess you have sci-fi elements. You're in space, and there's a monster.
I do. Okay. This was a real fast. I think this is a real quick. That's why I'm just like, okay, it's sci-fi horror.
Yeah, and it kind of came and went.
It did come in with that.
This is right before Deadpool 1 comes out.
Okay.
You don't really know who Rebecca Ferguson is yet because Mission Impossible,
Yeah.
Rogue Nation hadn't released yet.
Yeah.
And then Jake Gyllenhaal's kind of been Jake Gyllenhaal ever since October.
They were like astronauts. Right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And
have seen
they
this.
come across this life form, and of course, if you see any movie about humans discovering a life form, they're always intrigued and they gotta know more about it. They want to touch it and they want to learn everything they can about it because we're just curious, and I think in real life to our own detriment. But that's another story. And this creature, this alien, ends up being psychopathic. Is that a word? Psychopath?
Psychopath.
Yeah. It just basically starts wreaking havoc on this space shuttle, killing everybody. The initial scene that kind of kicks everything off and lets the audience know this entity is evil, or just is trying to protect its own survival, is when it's in this little case, and one of the scientists goes in to examine it, and the entity breaks one of the instruments being used on it, and basically devours the scientist's arm. It's a very gory film, by the way. I don't know if you would ever think about that. But every time this entity feeds, it grows in size. And by the end of it, it ends up being about the size of, well, you guys can't see it, but about the size of this table. I don't want to spoil it because it's a really cool ending, but they do try to escape because they realize we can't let this thing get back to Earth because it's sentient and it's trying to get to Earth to basically continue to consume and take over, because the more it eats, the bigger it's going to get. And so the remaining spacemen in the movie try to use the escape pods to get to Earth, but the monster's in one of the pods and tries to manipulate the direction of where the pod is going. And I don't want to spoil anything else. I'll leave it at that.
Just go life, movie,
Yep.
ending, YouTube.
Yes, that's actually true. You could, in this case, I would allow just go to YouTube and spoil the ending. But they name the entity Calvin.
Calvin.
Shout out to my sister because she's actually the one that helped me put this name on the list.
Okay.
Because she's the one that showed this movie to me, and we watched it together, and it was so good to her that she watched it again with me.
A horror film too?
She really isn't. She really isn't. But I guess this leans more towards horror, sci-fi, so it's like that on the teetering on the fence.
Okay.
So she can deal with that, and it's not monsters, it's not demons, so she can do that.
Pretty sure I saw this film too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
It just came and went in my mind.
to this day, we still joke about Calvin, and it's because of something that happens in the end. When you go to YouTube, spoil the ending, you'll understand why. Life Calvin.
Life Calvin ending. That's good. All right. Good. And that's, you know what, it's like I was talking about my deep cut with Norman Stansfield from The Professional. That's Calvin from Life was a deep, deep cut,
Yeah, it
which
is.
is good because I think we all know the real iconic, really bad guys. So to go off the beaten path a bit is a good thing. All right. When I say the name Bruce in conjunction with some of the most iconic antagonists
Hmm.
in film history, does anything pop into your mind?
I feel like it's right at the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite visualize what I'm trying to get to. So help me out.
Okay, so Bruce isn't a person. Okay, Bruce isn't even an animal, although it betrays one.
Okay, yeah, you lost me. I don't know.
Okay, so Bruce is the name that was given to the three mechanical sharks that played Jaws, that played the shark in
Oh,
Jaws.
you're right. Yep.
Right, so Bruce, that was his name,
Okay.
and that's going to be my one of my most iconic antagonists, which is the shark from
I knew
Jaws.
you would have Jaws on your list.
Well, because there was nothing scarier about going into the water at that time than potentially getting eaten by Bruce. um, but no, I mean iconic performances, right? Roy Schneider is in that movie. Obviously, the main character of the film is the shark and the threat of the shark, and not even the mechanical shark itself, but the threat of the shark was the real antagonist of the movie. What you couldn't see under the water, what you couldn't see and can't see in the dark, that is the real villain of this movie because it's what your imagination comes up with that is there or isn't there. And I think a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers who made movies with that kind of principle in mind always kind of pointed back to Jaws as where the origin maybe of that thought came from.
You might be triggering some childhood trauma because I have a thing about I don't know how to swim,
Yeah.
and I do have an irrational fear of water, and I did actually see Jaws at a very young age, so this may be
I
part of
don't want
why.
to swim in the ocean at all. I have no like people are like, go snorkeling, go let's do like the Great Barrier Reef and all that. I'm like, no, I don't
Yeah,
think I wanna.
not at all.
Especially how sketchy some of those guides look out there. I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
man, they're not trying to come save you. All right. So Bruce was the name of the three mechanical sharks, right? And then Oscar was the name of the real shark that they captured and hung up on a hook where they thought they had caught the shark like midway through the movie. That was an actual real shark. And they said that that was 2 days of shooting. They didn't want to take the shark off the hook because they were afraid it would come apart. They couldn't find a shark big enough in local waters. So I think one of the stunt guys had to go out and actually go somewhere else to capture this huge shark, and they only had one. So they captured this huge shark, they put it on ice, and then they hung it up for the scenes, for the one scene, and they had to leave it up there overnight. And the thing that they said about it that's the most memorable about that Oscar the shark,
and it stunk.
it's so bad
Yeah,
instantly. They said
yeah.
instantly it smelled bad,
Hmm.
and the whole time.
The real deadliest catch.
No, for sure. But again, uh, the the shark from Jaws is just so iconic, and for years, probably decades, has made people fearful of going into the water, and probably given sharks a really bad name,
Well,
but
do,
for entertainment's sake,
do you
and
think
really the first big blockbuster movie,
do you think it's fair to say we don't get Shark Week every summer without Jaws?
no doubt.
Yeah. Okay.
No doubt. And the fear of sharks. Look, this was a book before it was a film, and the book was striking fear into people as well. And the popularity of that book is the reason the film got made. So, yeah. And then this is I remember this is in filmmaking terms. This is the spark for Steven Spielberg to really go off and do all the awesome things that he would do later on. Although he had done other things like Duel before this, but Jaws was really what put him on the map and put cinema on the map for blockbusters. That was just a huge film that really I think in my mind, from what I remember and from what I've heard, really started the tentpole movie
Mm.
movement. It started that Jaws started it, and Star Wars helped push it along, and Indiana Jones, and all these big movies.
You wouldn't say The Godfather?
Oh, certainly, yeah, The Godfather 2
I think
as
I think
well.
Godfather was first, no, before Jaws.
I think so. I think it was,
Jaws is
but
more popular than The Godfather.
Jaws was more elemental. Can I say it like that? Like
Yeah,
it was more nature versus man.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whereas, uh, the Godfather told a gangster story in a way that had never been done before. He talked about the mafia. It started all of that, and it was brutal in its own way, but it was people versus people. Where this is more elemental. It wasn't even just a shark versus man. It was the unknown darkness
Hmm.
versus man. It was what lies beneath that we don't know about. It was more at our core fear
Yeah.
than Godfather was. A really great story told by a filmmaker in his prime. Jaws was the spark of Spielberg's career, putting him on a national stage,
Mhm.
and he built it on the case of unseen fears.
You just mentioned before this he did the movie Duel.
Yeah.
Shout out to Orange Valiance. If you know if you've seen the movie, you know.
Orange Valley.
No, Orange Valiant. That's the
Orange
car
Valley.
that the guy in Duel drives.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
saw that as a kid as well. And I was just talking to my pops about that movie because we were talking about how crazy the driver of the vehicle, the protagonist, um, how crazy and erratic his behavior was. Like if you know that movie, the ending, I think the semi truck chasing this guy drives off the cliff, and it's the way this guy gets out of the car and starts acting like he's so frantic and beside himself. He can't even really. His moment of triumph almost comes off like a drug induced fever dream. It's the
It
best way
was
to
the
describe.
70s.
And, yeah, it was. So there was
I
definitely
think it
drugs.
was maybe even the late 60s. I
Yeah,
remember when that came out. Oh, yeah. So, Shark from Jaws.
great choice. Glad I didn't add it because I know you'd have it. Um, that's one for me. Number 22 on the OG list. I'm gonna stop saying the OG list. Let's just move on.
No, we're
This,
fine.
okay,
People are
20
still people are keeping track at home. What are you
because
talking
there are people that probably think this guy came up with 32. I can't give you five. So yeah.
about? It's all white noise. That's like number 57 out of 10. That's good.
So number 22 on the OG list. Number five on the actual top 10 list is we're going back to horror films. I lied earlier. I told you I only had one.
Yeah,
I
you
got two.
stinking liar.
This guy or this character is another one of those like you keep thinking you got rid of him this time, but you didn't. He's gotten away a few times, and then he died, which we thought we died for real, but then he's come back multiple times. This is a Jigsaw from the Saw franchise,
Okay. Yes.
which I'm not really big on the franchise as a whole. I mean, they've made I think at this point 10 or 11
Too many.
of these, yeah.
The Fast and Furious 4.
And of course, once you get into the double digits, yeah, there's going to be some problems, some continuity
The cast
issues.
gets lesser and lesser known.
Yeah, yeah,
Quality goes
exactly.
yes.
But yeah, like I said before, like this is a guy that initially you couldn't catch. The Saw One is incredible.
Incredible.
The twist at the end is something no one saw coming. And subsequently the each entry after they tried to up the ante, add more plot twists. Oh, this person was involved, and the traps become more intricate and gory. It's a really gory. And I'm not really a big gory
Did you
person.
do like Fast and Furious where the initial high and then it starts to decline, and then there'd be something in the middle that get everybody back on board a bit?
Yeah, well, they pulled the Fast and Furious. They went back in the linear timeline, and the latest entry goes back I think after part two or three. But in order they were released, like by year, this is like number 10, but really this would be like 2.5.
Okay.
So they just keep finding a way to bring this guy back for whatever reason.
But did the popularity go back?
Yeah.
Among film.
Oftentimes when you're talking about legacy franchises and you bring back some of those characters, it kind of brings back some.
Jurassic Park.
Yep.
Yeah, we've seen that.
I'm hoping they do that with Avengers. I want the Core Six back.
Oh man, yeah, heck yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, just straightforward. If you've seen Saw, you know who Jigsaw is. You know the little puppet on the little tricycle. I want to play a game. The voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Lied to me about the horror things. Just for doing that, I'm gonna nail you right here. I'm gonna nail you. I'm gonna nail you right here.
Maybe don't say that.
Real good.
Okay. Whoa.
Because this is a movie that I think is your favorite movie, or if not your favorite, your most favorite movie.
I'm actually gonna be proud if you say who I think it is. I'm gonna be proud of you.
It's gonna be, and I was hoping, I was really kind of, part of me was split. I was kind of hoping you got to him before I did, but after that whole second horror film thing, I was kind of now I'm happy that it's here. Number five for me is Vincent in the movie Collateral, played
That's
by
what I'm talking
Tom
about. Let's go.
Cruise.
Shout out to Tom Cruise.
Is that on your list?
No, no.
What?
No. Because I mean the other name.
Explain yourself.
He's iconic in that we've never seen Tom Cruise in that way.
Yeah.
Like the silver hair, the silver suit. He's the assassin, the smooth talking villain in the back seat in your ears, like the devil on your shoulder in a way. But he doesn't measure up in terms of what I would consider to be iconic antagonists based on my list.
Okay. Well, to me, he has plays a certain type of villain that is, in some ways, even more scarier than Voldemort, or even maybe Hannibal Lecter, Norman Stansfield, the shark from Jaws, and that is the villain that you kind of like. I like. There's something that's straightforward with the Tom Cruise character. He's obviously doing evil things in the back of that cab that Jamie Foxx is driving, and in that he is forcing Jamie Foxx to take him to do all of these jobs, and the last job is to take out Jamie Foxx. And you have a sense, though, throughout the film that maybe he's going to let Jamie live.
Yep.
He's just evil. He's evil, clearly evil, but he has a set of rules. And it almost feels like he befriends Jamie Foxx to a point where I think I can trust this guy.
Yeah.
I think I kind of like this guy. He's no nonsense. He's got a job to do. Clearly, he's got some military or some kind of training. So maybe he fought for the good guys at one point, or there's something there. Always hinted at, but that's the thing. Tom Cruise is a likable guy. That's why he's had a career that has been so long. He's had so many successful movies. People like him. People want to be him. People see themselves in him. That's what makes him such a great movie actor. Maybe our greatest of our generation.
The real last action hero, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And lasted so many years and still going. But at the end, he betrays us all, including Jamie Foxx, by trying to kill him. And that was the plan all along. And you realize this guy really is evil. He's really kind of just leading Jamie along. I don't know. There might have been some realness in there, but
I was gonna say. So you think his plan was to kill him all along?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no way that
I
Jamie was
don't
ever
think so.
gonna get out.
I don't think so.
He think that because of the things Jamie did to try and get away, and gave him no choice.
Well, I think it's like what you said. I think they did find some common ground.
Yes.
Just traveling through the LA streets at night while on these missions to take out these people.
Yeah.
I think they found common ground, and I think the Tom Cruise character Vincent, I think he saw something in Jamie that maybe another life that he could have lived had he not chosen the assassin route. And I said assassin.
No, you said it right.
Okay.
I didn't hear that assassin.
Okay. Maybe it's in my head, but I think had Jamie not flipped the cab at the end because he realized he was going to go kill the DA lawyer, I think if he had just taken him to that last hit and let him go back to the airport and be a ghost in the wind, I think he would have let him live.
I don't think so. I think the plan was to kill him no matter what.
Okay.
Maybe I need to go back and look at it, but that was, to me, I don't know how you let him live, first of all. The guy's seen your face.
Yeah, but the thing is,
And
if you remember everything that had happened, Mark Ruffalo's
see that this is one of his favorite films.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk
He's
about
deep
this.
into this.
Yes. So they before they go to downtown LA to kill Jada Pinkett or attempt to,
Yeah.
they're in that Club Fever, and Mark Ruffalo's the cop, and he's kind of figured it out. He's trying to get Jamie Foxx to save him, and as they're about to exit the club, Tom Cruise kills Mark Ruffalo. I think at that point, Jamie Foxx is so caught up in the happenings of that night, the busted up cab, the cops that pulled him over earlier that let him go, the shootout at the club, then flipping the cab. I think all of that he's implicated in too much. He even goes in that one nightclub to get the thumb drive so he can finish his mission. I think he's implicated in too many things surrounding Vincent. Vincent can be a ghost in the wind and let Jamie take the fall for a lot of it.
I just think the plan was from the beginning that he just didn't want, he wanted to minimize the escape attempts by Jamie.
Okay.
And so by giving him, dangling the carrot of, I could possibly let you go at the end of this, was to try to keep him in line.
I mean, I can see a version of the movie where that happens.
He goes,
for sure.
"Hey man, thank you, buddy."
Yeah.
Turns around and pops him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, to me, that was the ultimate ending, and that's what I got from it. Regardless, the fact that he's as likable as he is makes him one of the more iconic antagonists, because normally the key to the antagonist here that we talked about, Henry Lecter, there's a fear factor with them. Voldemort, there's a fear factor with them. But the shark from Jaws that we talked about, you fear them because they're fearful characters. There isn't really anything redeeming about them, right? They're evil characters.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about Vincent that's different. How can you be such an evil person and a friend? It's a weird combination that I think he does really good at mixing.
When I think of Vincent, I think he's unpredictable, not in behavior, but in his action. So the fact that he's already in the backseat of your car, and we get that POV throughout the film, Jamie up front, but he's in control of the vehicle physically, but he's not in control of the car mentally, because Vincent's in control of what happens throughout the rest of this night. He's the passenger, but he's basically taking Jamie for a ride, and he's cold, he's calculated. When I say unpredictable,
that's right.
In the club scene, I remember seeing that for the first time. Definitely, when they make that turn and you realize, oh, he's there to kill this jazz guy. I'll never forget that turn. And even the way it plays out in the scene, they almost give the audience time to like, oh my gosh, he's really there to kill this guy. You can see it on the actor's face, the jazz guy's face. Oh, he's here for me.
Right.
It's unpredictable. We never expected it in that moment for that to happen. And the way he kills him, the way he has a switch he can turn on and off.
Yeah, but don't you feel the way that he treated the jazz guy is similar to the way that he was treating Jamie?
Befriending him, and
you even called him cold and calculated.
Yeah.
I can't think like a guy like that lets the cabbie live at
right.
the end of it. He plans from the very beginning that he's done.
The only reason I say, or I have my take on that, is because of a lot of the conversations that the two of them have in the cab, in between the hits, in between the getting away.
I think that's all part of it.
Yeah, and it could be. It very well could be. But I think that also adds just another layer to the narrative and the story.
I think he saw a rare opportunity to connect with someone.
Yeah.
But no matter what, the mission always came first for this dude.
Okay. I can see him letting Jamie go and then not ever thinking about Jamie again. Like it was just that a moment in time for him, and for him it's on to the next thing. But I can see a world where your ending plays out too.
Yeah, I just felt like he never saw Jamie as a threat.
Yeah,
like never, and he controlled the situation.
Which is why maybe he wouldn't kill him. He's like, you're not a threat. You can't do anything to get me caught. But
I felt like he was going to. I think Jamie's character felt that way too. Okay. I don't think he can go through that night and not think, I got to get out of this because I'm not going to be able to.
Right.
This. Okay, yeah, that was mine. Although it felt like yours. That was mine.
I'm talking about my favorite movie of all time.
That's why. I'm giving you grace. Go ahead. And I'll give you a little flack too. Go ahead. What's your next?
No, that was great. I like it. We could have done a whole episode just on that movie.
Yeah, for sure. My top 10 favorite moments in Collateral.
No, I'm just really shocked that he's on your list, but I'm glad that he was.
All right. So yeah, now we've gone off my Vincent. Now it's your turn.
All right. Next one on my list. Number 23 on the OG list. Number 6 on the top 10 list. Shout out to the OG. The real LeBron.
I was going to say, is that the antagonist? The real LeBron? Because I would go with that. He has been a super villain in the NBA.
No, I definitely, if we had a top 10 most antagonists in sports, LeBron's on number 1 on my list.
Villain of the Lakers.
100%. No, but this is, if you're a fan of, we just talked about Tom Cruise, great segue. If you're a fan of the Mission Impossible franchise, which I think if you've seen any of them, you got to be a fan.
I'm trying to figure out which one of these villains you're going to choose.
Well, this villain, my sister and I discuss often. And we're talking 18 years later. This is probably
a recent Mission Impossible.
No. We still think is the most iconic villain in that franchise. Super menacing. The actor is no longer with us, played by the great Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes. That's the one.
Owen Davian from Mission Impossible 3. This is the only entry in the franchise that J.J. Abrams directed. And this, to me, is where the franchise hit its stride.
I agree.
One was great. That was...
one was ultimately rewatchable.
More cerebral.
Very cerebral. Although, Don't down the action pieces are great.
Oh no, they're really good. Yeah,
Freaking helicopter blade right
yeah,
to the
yeah.
neck.
You love that. I don't know why
I
that
do.
whole. It's just like the whole the knife right to the eye, Mission Impossible 2. It's the same thing to me. It's just like that doesn't work on me anymore. Um, but I mean, part two
You've
is.
seen too much horror. That's why.
I think I see too much everything at
Like,
this point.
why isn't that blade entering that man? Why is it just right there? At the
Yeah, no,
neck?
I mean, I get it. That was the year 2000. That was for dramatic effect. But I think it gets to a point, real quick sidebar, when you have just seen too many movies. There's certain things that don't wow you anymore.
Gotcha.
Because you've seen it a million times.
I felt that about the Fall Guy when they were fighting inside the
Whoa, whoa,
spinning
whoa, whoa,
dumpster.
whoa! Spoiler alert.
No, it's a scene that's in the trailer.
Okay.
They're in a spinning dumpster fighting. That was just like
Oh,
why?
yeah.
I don't know.
No, but back to Owen Davian. Like
Owen Davian, yes.
from the word go in this movie,
From the word go.
we're thrown right into a countdown,
Yes.
and this character's got a gun to Ethan Hunt's wife's
Yes.
head, and he's counting down.
Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle Monaghan.
Monaghan.
She's in some commercial now. She looks great, by the way.
Yeah.
I wish she would start getting more roles again because she's a great actress.
Yes.
Anyway, she's phenomenal in this movie as well. So there's a countdown. I'm gonna count to 10. If you don't tell me what the rabbit's foot is, I'm gonna kill your wife. And Ethan Hunt's like, I gave you the rabbit's foot. I gave it to you. And at this point, we don't know what rabbit's foot is.
Nope.
That's never even alluded to in the trailers.
Well, it's never alluded to in the movie what the rabbit foot is. They never tell us.
Oh, I mean, kinda. Towards the end.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean, we don't know for sure what it is, but we know something very small.
Yes. We know the size.
Yeah, but we're okay. So we're thrown into this chaos right away, and there's every time he counts a number down, you see a different emotion from Ethan Hunt's character.
Yeah.
He's trying to reason, he's trying to threaten, he's trying to plead and
Every
beg
trick in the book.
everything in a 10, and he
Not falling for it.
gets to 10, and then the you hear the trigger, you hear the gun go off, and then the dynamite stick lights up, and it's the
Well, you see Tom Cruise's reaction to the shot too, right? Don't you see?
not that time. That's when they get back to that scene in the actual linear
that's when you
story.
see that. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
the last thing we see before he pulls the trigger is Philip Seymour Hoffman's blank stare on his face, looking at Ethan Hunt, and he says 10, and he just boom.
You hear it.
Yeah, to me, it's one of the best openings of any movie. Like,
Ever.
I was shook from the beginning. I was like, this guy's scary. And then, unlike Voldemort or Hannibal Lecter, like they set the precedent from the beginning. We see this guy. We know this guy stands on business.
Yeah.
And so
That's a great phrase.
when we see him later on, it's just like, okay, what else is this guy going to be capable of? What can he do? And there's that iconic, for me, scene when they quote unquote capture him on the plane,
Yeah.
and Ethan's threatening him, and then he pulls him back in from the little airlift, like he's gonna drop him, and he starts threatening him. He's like, who are you? What's your name? Do you have a loved one? I'm gonna find her. I'm gonna hurt her in front of you. Like,
Yeah.
and he says it so calm, but there's like a menacing demeanor about the way he speaks those words, and you believe him. And then we get back to that scene that in the intro later on, but great payoff, great performance. To me, he should be on any iconic antagonist, just simply because of how menacing he was. Anything he said he was gonna do, he did it. And it got to the point where you thought, well, maybe Ethan doesn't pull this one off. And of course, it's Mission Impossible. There's a couple of twists in there.
It's called Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
He's gonna pull off the impossible.
And I mean, to me, I think it's why his performance alone is why that movie still holds up against the newer ones. To me,
I agree. And who would have thought that same guy from the Twister movie is talking about sustenance and is gonna be the greatest Mission Impossible villain? I agree, dude. If I hadn't thought of it, he'd probably be on this.
yeah, I'm
list.
actually surprised he wasn't on your list.
No, like you said, there were over 30 for you, and there were just so many that yeah, that was the one I missed. I would have put him on there, but I don't think it devalues any of the ones that I still have.
Fair enough.
And one of the ones that I do still have, I think a lot of people are going to agree with this. Hans Gruber, from the movie Die Hard, played by the great and the late Alan Rickman.
Also, Snape from the Harry Potter franchise.
I know. I kind of hate that he's known for that more, but no, Hans Gruber in the Tower, again, a little bit likable, but also just because Alan Rickman's likable. That's really the only reason. But definitely going head to head with Bruce Willis is what made that film. Like, He wasn't necessarily menacing because he was overtly evil like Voldemort or other people that are on this list like Hannibal Lecter. He was a criminal. I mean, he was a basic. At the end of the day, they were in it for the money that was in the vault,
Mm-hmm.
and not these freedom fighters that they wanted the police to think that they were.
Right.
But the fact that he goes in really the best part of that movie, outside of maybe the action scenes, is that the barbs between him and Willis.
Yeah, through the
Him and Bruce
walkie-talkie.
Willis, yes.
Yep.
And the yippee ki and that whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the best turns in a movie where the hero and the villain meet for the first time is that Hans Gruber fakes like he's one of the guys that escaped from the
Do
party.
you remember the name that he used when John?
Bill. He used the name that he saw on the sign.
What was the last name?
Oh, I don't.
Bill Clay.
Bill Clay.
He says Clay. Bill Clay.
That's right.
Yep.
That is Bill Clay. That's funny what you remember.
It is weird.
And but no, played beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's swarmy. You hate him by the end of it.
First role ever, right, for him?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But his falling out of the tower at the end is iconic. That stunt is iconic. The building's iconic. I mean, there's so much.
The Nakatomi Tower. That name right alone.
Right. Did you see that when you went to LA?
No,
Okay.
I didn't see it.
I know you got 600 pictures. I wonder if one of them was the.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that one. Sorry, man.
It's okay. I don't even know if it's still there. I don't. I assume that it is. But yeah, no. Hans Gruber, and there's a certain charm and elegance about him that he brings to the role. But
He's
you
the only-
don't like him.
He's the only guy in that crew that wears a suit.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that kind of tells you he's just like a businessman.
but one of the more harrowing scenes in the movie is when there's that guy faking to be Bruce Willis's friend. That swarmy salesman.
Oh.
I think that movie.
Ellis.
And Ellis is trying to tell the Bruce Willis character to come down. Come. I'm gonna broker this deal between. They bring him a coat.
Yep.
And he's
Yep.
trying to broker this deal.
Yep.
And when he realizes, and Bruce Willis's character is like saying, "Ellis, don't do this. Ellis, you know what I mean?
Tell them you don't know me.
Yeah, tell him you don't know me.
Yep.
That's right." And then they kill him. Oh, dude,
Because after that moment,
it's so villainy.
you can see Ellis, the actor that plays that character. Shout out, he was also in Supergirl with Helen Slater.
Wow,
He was the main male in that. But anyway,
deep cut.
yeah, there's that moment where he kind of realizes, oh, maybe this isn't going the way I thought. He takes that swig of coke, but you can tell it's a tough swallow for
It is
him.
a tough swallow.
And then they cut to Hans, and he kind of picks up the gun like slowly and holds it, and then it cuts to McClane listening, and then you hear the boom.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, such a great
that
villain
was
moment.
it was a great scene.
It made you fearful. All right, this guy's capable.
Yep.
Really. And I think they show that at the beginning too, when they kill the big boss at the. I mean the.
Oh.
The
Mr. Nakatomi.
yes,
Yeah.
they kill him. That really is the initial moment where it's like, oh no, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But yeah, no, Hans Gruber certainly I think iconic, deserves to be on the list.
For sure. 100%. And I do think that was Alan Rickman's first role ever in a
crazy.
movie. Yeah.
It is.
To knock
It's
out the
so
park like
good.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next one for me.
Well, welcome to the world, dude.
Oh yeah, for sure. And for whatever reason, his accent also stands out. It's I guess it's just I don't want to say generic or basic, but it's like it's British.
I don't know what it is.
But-
It's like German.
But if you look at all of his
Dutch
the
or-
little cronies he's worked with, like there's German guy, there's an Asian guy,
Yeah.
and so it's like he just got this mercenary team put together.
Yeah.
And of course, the lead is going to be British because it makes him sound much more intelligent when he speaks. So great choice.
Thank you.
Number 24 on the OG list for me. Number 6 on the actual top 10 list. I go right into it. This is the movie that this actor won the Oscar for best performance in a movie in 2001. This is the second Oscar. His first Oscar he won for a supporting role in the movie Glory. And then we fast forward about 11, 12 years later, 2001. Antoine Fuqua directed this movie. Supporting cast, I don't even want to say supporting cast. Co-star was Ethan Hawke. And this movie's Training Day, and I'm talking about Alonzo Harris.
That's on
I
my
like your list.
Oh, it's on my bonus. It was on my bonus.
Okay,
So
all right.
we're good.
Cool,
we're good.
cool. We're kind of in a mode now. We're talking about people on our list who are smooth talkers. They're very persuasive, like you kind of are just like left hanging on every word they say. Um, he's very, what's the word I'm thinking of? He's dangerously seductive in how he speaks to Ethan Hawke. Like he's like a spider. He just brings you into the lures you in,
That's a good
and he
one.
traps you in his world. And I think at this point everybody kind of knows what Training Day is. Ethan Hawke's
No
played
spoilers.
character, Jake Hoyt.
We're gonna give
It's
it away.
his first day in like a drug division, basically. So he's not patrol. He's a level up detective. And Alonzo Harris, played by Denzel Washington, is his trainer for the day. He's like, you got one day to prove to me you can make the
You
squad.
believe, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, that you belong here. Yeah.
And there's a million good moments in this movie, so I won't talk about the moments. It's just a great movie overall. Check it out, please. Um, Denzel's performance in this is something that we had never seen from him prior, where he's actually the villain. And of course, you don't really know that until it hits the fan in the movie. Um, it's I think it might be the best performance villain wise on this list for me.
I can get with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason he won the Oscar for it,
Yeah.
and the ending is just great because by the end there's a confrontation.
King Kong got
Yeah,
nothing
the
on
great
me.
speech. I mean, Denzel's great for a good speech in his movies,
He
and
is.
and normally there's not anybody in his films that will challenge him. And then when you first meet Jay Coyte's character, you think this guy can't be anybody that's gonna try to stand up to him
Yeah, he couldn't match him
in
in
any
street
way
smarts.
at all. Yeah,
Physically, as a cop, as experienced in the
right.
streets, he can't match up anywhere. Yeah. Somehow,
Somehow, and by the end, he
gets through it.
does. Yeah, he does. But I mean, it
Out of the
takes
skin of his teeth.
and it takes him almost dying to make that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I gotta take this guy out.
One good act redeemed him by the
Yeah,
end.
crazy,
Luckily.
crazy how that all ties in.
Yeah, and I think that real happens in real life too. I
Oh,
think that's
100%.
that might be based on something true because something like that had to happen before.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about this is now that I'm thinking about it, I never really made the connection until just now. But the Alonzo and Jake dynamic or relationship kind of reminds me of the Al Pacino Keanu Reeves dynamic in The Devil's Advocate.
Oh wow. Okay.
Very seductive and young, kind of naive, wants to be this big shot, go to the next level. Follow me, I'll take you under my wing, and I'll take you to that next level if you just follow and do what I say and
Gotcha.
that kind of thing.
All right. And Devil's Advocate. Every time I hear about that, I think about that movie. I think about The Firm too, with Tom Cruise.
Oh, and Gene Hackman, yeah,
Yeah, I
and the
think
Quaker Oats guy.
Yeah, and that might be even a better direct connection because it's a criminal.
Yeah,
element to it.
you're right for sure.
All right. One of the antagonists on a lot of people's list was the original Terminator, which was played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I think the T-1000 from T2 is a much better antagonist and iconic antagonist, and really one of the only things that we know mainly know Robert Patrick from. Like I know now that he's gotten older, he's probably less recognizable as a T-1000, but he but as the character himself, the unstoppable machine that turns into liquid, seemed unbeatable at the time, and obviously took another Terminator to defeat it. But the things it was able to do, it was able to shapeshift, turn into other people, create weapons out of itself,
Knives, stabbing weapons.
right? And obviously resourceful, all the knowledge of the future, able to use modern technology to attract people. So much things that you just think this guy's unbeatable.
Well, it also helped that he impersonated a cop, so he had a cop uniform on, so that
Right.
added to
Right.
his character as well.
Literally, yeah, but there's like literally only so many things you could have done to defeat him. They obviously figure one out by the end, but it is still very close, and one of the more terrifying villains in film history, I think.
The first time you saw this, when he's frozen with the liquid nitrogen and then he gets shot, did you think that was it?
No,
Okay,
no, because I thought, I just thought it was just too easy,
too easy. Yeah,
and that's always a sign that it's going to be more. And then they give you it to you because they start showing the fire that's near it melting.
Yeah.
Liquid drops.
yeah,
And you know it's coming back. Yeah, you know.
that was great.
was
I
great.
like the extended director's cut of that movie because it dives deeper into the pathos of the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator. There's a lot more dialogue and scenes added back into that cut where John's talking to the Terminator about how to learn and become more human like, which actually makes the ending when he says goodbye much more impactful because you see more of the journey in the director's cut that Arnold's Terminator goes through to learning how humans interact and being around them and being more normal.
Okay.
And then even with some of the special effects with the T-1000, after he's melted and reforms again, there's some special effects there with like his molecular structure is kind of altered after that reforming. And when he takes steps like on the caution platform, it's like the yellow and black. The camera pans down, his feet are yellow and black. Looks like his molecular structure is breaking down and all that. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
But yeah, excellent choice for
Well,
antagonist.
yes.
Absolutely.
Let's keep rocking. What do you got?
All right. So we did Voldemort. So number 28 on the OG list. Now number 8 on my top 10 list is the most recent antagonist, but I think is iconic in a million ways if you saw the movie. And this is Fade Rotha from Dune 2, played by Austin Butler.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't seen a character that menacing and sadistic and evil in a very long time.
I agree.
And I saw this movie twice in the theaters because just overall, like, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here while we're recording. If they stick the landing with part 3, best franchise ever. Best franchise ever.
God, that's hard to, man, that's so hard to, but yeah.
I've considered every other like top tier franchise like Star Wars, Dark Knight,
Right.
all those. To me, if they stick the
They
landing,
got to stick the landing though, yeah.
yeah, they have
Agree.
to.
But
And-
no, it's 2 was better than 1 for me, and Austin Butler was so good. But it's so fresh too. That's the thing.
yeah,
With the iconic part of it, it just hasn't had enough time for me to set in as one of those.
yeah, I
So
give
it
you
would
that.
never even have come into my mind because it's so new. But by the end of its run, it could be very well.
Yeah, I say again. We talked about giving what movie was it? 10 years. You know, I was off mic talking about Stranger Things and other
Oh, yeah,
shows.
yeah, yeah.
But I think if whenever part 3 comes out, Doom Messiah is what they're going to call it. It's based on the second book. Whenever that comes out, give it the 5 years after. Because I mean, spoiler alert. But Fade Rotha does get killed in Doom 2, so he's not going to come back. So I think give it 10 years from this year to 2034. Then let's talk about this character and see where he sits.
Okay.
But I mean, coming off of Elvis,
Yeah.
no one expected it to be this good.
That's
He's got the full shaved head, the eyebrows, the scenes he's in when he's fighting in the arena. It almost looks like very Roman-esque and gladiators, and it's black and white. However they did all that was incredible.
He plays a psychopath who cannot be allowed to rule. If he is allowed to rule,
Yeah,
it's going to ruin everything. That kind of a sense to it, and
Which
he
is-
plays it perfectly.
and it's crazy because in Dune 1 and leading up to his intro in Dune 2, we thought the other Harkonnen, played by Stellan Skarsgård,
Yeah.
was evil. But then we meet Fade Roth and it's like, oh, okay, that guy is nothing.
That guy-
This
that's
guy-
good. Yeah. This guy's scared of this guy.
Yeah.
yeah. Good. I like it. That was good. That's a good call. Me, probably the most iconic out of this group, Darth Vader from Star Wars, voiced by James Earl Jones.
If you didn't have him on the list, I was going to judge you.
Yeah, he has to be on the list, and it's a no-brainer. But also, it's a time thing. Like, I think in time, we talked about this off mic too. That the public, especially as we're getting younger and younger generations to come in that don't remember when it came out originally, it's dulled the impact of Darth Vader on our culture. Darth Vader was, especially right up until the end of Empire Strikes Back, like through the Star Wars, up until the end of Empire Strikes Back, he was such a menacing and evil figure, probably one of the most already at that time, just like if you associated antagonist with anything, it might be Darth Vader was the key member. And the fact that there's a twist at the end of Empire Strikes Back that's probably the greatest all-time twist in cinema history, or at least was at the time, right? Like the fact that the guy that you hate so much is in fact your father
Yep.
is so insane. And that sting of that twist is lost on anybody who wasn't maybe born at that time or around that time, because it's been memed so much, it's been talked about so much, and it's such an iconic moment that the luster, it's lost it over time. And people, you could pull that twist off now and it would never come off the same because it just didn't have the sting that it had back then.
Right.
And if you were a part of that, and if you were part of that, you remember that turn was God smacking to you.
Yeah.
It made you audibly, shocked you. And I think even when they filmed that scene, that Luke didn't know, because they added the
You mean
voice.
actor Mark Hamill? Didn't know?
Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Sorry, Luke, the actor, didn't know that was going to be what was going to be said. I think the actual person on set said something different, and then they put that in, that he was his father later, and he saw it himself and was gobsmacked
Okay.
by the answer.
Interesting.
So he got it too, which is crazy to think. But anyway, I might be talking out of my butt on that one. So give me a little grace from that's one of our.
Yeah, I know we don't fact check on here.
No fact check. Yeah. But no, that twist is so iconic, and at the heart of it is the antagonist, the evilness of Darth Vader, and to think that evil thing is the hero's father is insane, and was at the time mind blowing, and it cemented him in forever history, movie history, at least in my mind, as one of the if not the most, one of the most iconic antagonists ever.
Agreed. I can't be mad at that at all. And I want to say, I think it's crazy that he went so far out of his way to make that admission, because if you're my kid and you're just not finding out, I basically just outed myself, and now I have to pay all this child support restitution. I don't know if I would want to do that. I don't, maybe space chips, I guess is how their currency was in that galaxy far, far away. But
I think it was chits. What it was called.
okay, yeah, but that it's just crazy. Like I think at this point you just let that go, man. Like I don't want to have to pay you the restitution if that even goes to my illegitimate son, or child support, back pay. That's crazy. But to your point about how menacing and frightening he was,
Yeah.
they did a really good job of pulling that off in Rogue One.
Yeah. Well, they showed his real power.
Yeah,
At the height of his power.
which was the first time we've ever really seen that. Yeah,
I think they revisited it in the Obi-Wan series too. I mean, he's just, yeah. I mean, but it had lost its luster by then. But the iconicness of his breath
the breathing. Yeah,
alone, and his first reveal to the public in this mask, all black cape, red saber. That's just so many iconic evil things that surrounded him, and then the big twist that he's actually Luke's father was amazing cinema history.
I give you that. Can't knock that at all. All right, number 29 on my OG list, number 9 on my top 10 list. I'm gonna go right into it. This is Rose from Get Out, the girlfriend from Get Out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought about Get Out, and I was like, well, there's just a whole family.
So I thought about that too. It's the whole family, but if you think about it,
You think it's her more?
he's the one that has to go out and find the black boyfriends and bring them in. Yeah, that takes a whole different level of sadistic
That does. That's
to go out, and you're basically the scout for your family.
Yeah, and doing things to be the scout.
Yeah. Yeah, she reveled in
gotta
that
do.
role.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the scene where she's eating the Cheerios out of the cup, with the glass of milk right next to it, like that makes you iconic, the evil right there. Like, who does that? I've never eaten cereal dry like that, out of a cup
With a glass of milk.
Yeah, right next to it. That's super creepy. So, yeah, and then of course the reveal when Daniel Kaluuya's character, I can't remember his name now. He's just like, Rose, where are the keys? Find the keys, and she finally comes down the stairs, and the family's confronted him, and they kind of have all the exits blocked. And she's like, "Oh, you mean these?" And she had the keys the whole time.
Oof.
And that's when you realize, oh, that's the gasp moment in the theater, right?
That's
like, oh, she's gonna
what's
do.
going to happen? It's going to have to happen now.
Yeah, because leading up to this, and this is like, this kicks off the third act. So for 2 full acts, you fully believe Rose is like with him and is on his side, and because he's trying to explain to her, things are a little weird here. This happened, and right before the third act kicks off, she was like, "Okay, let's go home." He had kind of talked her into it, but then of course,
We all kind of have a sigh of relief a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're going to go home." But then you realize this is old. This is old. This is like old news to her. Like, she's dealt with this before
many times.
Like so she's like, she knows what to do to
Exactly.
and she's doing it to us too.
Right.
Not just to him, to us.
Which is the brilliant part of the performance.
is.
And her name is Allison something in real life. The actress. She was also in. I think it came out last year. Megan, the
Ooh,
AI robot.
okay.
And she's in
Why
that
is it always going to be AI?
because I don't know. Like we're not gonna go there. Not this time. AI gets discussed too much in this podcast. But yes, it is always AI. But no, it's Rose from Get Out.
Got it.
Yeah.
Love it. Good.
Oh, and by the way, Daniel Kaluuya's character name, his name was Chris in the movie. Chris.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is my final one on my list. I've got a couple bonuses, but and I'll mention those. But mine's a little short because we both had Ivan drop. My last one on my list is Thanos, and particularly
Yeah.
Thanos from Avengers: Infinity War, played by Josh Brolin. And this is the Thanos that allows you to go. Is the big bad has been the big bad, mentioned before previously in other movies, but this is the one where we're introduced to his power and his passion, and that is to rid the entire universe of half of its population. And in order to do that, to gather the Infinity Stones to do that, and he'll do anything and kill anyone that he needs to kill to get those Infinity Stones. And he has a plethora of evil uh, compatriots and soldiers, animal soldiers ready to go at a moment's notice. But really, it's that introduction of him. I know we've met him previously in other films and at the end of movies, at end credits and things like that.
He had a few scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy.
We saw okay, but this is really when we got the this is the Voldemort revealing himself part of Avengers, and by the end of it, he wins. I mean, that's the thing. I remember being in a theater at the end of this movie, and people were shocked. They were like, "This is it? It's ending like this?" And the people were audibly crying and saying, "No, no." When they started to seeing a lot of their superheroes disintegrating, and that what they thought were dying,
Probably one of the most polarizing endings ever.
and perfect.
Yeah.
And everybody wants that Empire Strikes Back moment, and they got theirs. They got the bad ending that left everybody really wanting more and wanting resolution. And we had to wait a year for that resolution. If you remember that,
Yeah, I do.
these two movies were filmed together, but they spaced them.
That was great
by
though.
a year.
That was brilliant.
It was so yeah, and the ending, and rarely it does it ever, but the ending paid off in Endgame really well. So for me anyway. But we're talking about antagonist, man, Thanos. Even though it's pretty recent, I think he's cemented his place on that list somewhere. Maybe not in your top 10, but certainly on the upper echelons of any antagonist list. He's up there. One, because of what he's able to commit. Two, that himself, although he didn't carry a film franchise, were all defeated a bunch of people who did.
Yeah.
So he lived up to being the big bad. And maybe the more important thing of all of those is not his power, not his violence, not his abilities, not his evil, but the fact that he had a moral objective. I think a lot of people kind of agreed with that. In order to there's too much suffering in the world, and so that everyone has enough, I'm going to have to eliminate half these people so that everyone can live a more peaceful and prosperous life.
Yeah.
Although the method people will be, oh, it's terrible, but I think everybody understands it. It's kind of a noble objective, which is crazy. And so you connect with him you kind of connect with him a little bit, like we talked about. Some of the best villains are the ones you connect with, like a Vincent from Collateral that you kind of like, that you kind of understand where they're coming from. Shoot, don't show me their origin stories because I might even connect with them even more. We might even start rooting for the bad guy, like we did in Breaking Bad or something like that, right? This is literally a drug dealer in Breaking Bad that we're rooting for. So, Thanos, top 10 on my list for a lot of reasons, and I think they're pretty evident. So, while I'm saying that, I know you got one more to go. Right. So, let me give just my bonuses really quick.
How many bonuses do you have?
3. And I'll just mention them.
All right.
So some of the ones that didn't make the list were right on the edge there. Raul Sylvia from Skyfall, that's played by Javier Bardem, playing an ex-00 agent. Thought it was, and when he takes the thing out of his mouth, it's so horrific. His face without the reconstruction. Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life, played by Lionel Barrymore. I know we're reaching back.
No, I hated that guy.
But everybody hated that guy.
Yeah.
He was so, he was really represented greed in the film. And then finally, and maybe this guy should have been on my list because I have so much to say about it, but I'll only give him a brief mention here. J.K. Simmons as Terrence Fletcher in Whiplash. I think uh, if we've ever been bullied in life, I think this guy in a position of power as a teacher was the ultimate bully. And well, I don't think he did throw things at people. I don't think he ever physically assaulted anyone, right? But verbally tore people to shreds, and then commits some, has a little bit of a turn where you think that he's actually a pretty good guy, or let bygones be bygones outside of the classroom. He just wants to make you better, and then there's a little twist, and he's like, "Oh no, this dude sucks."
Yeah.
And then it kind of gets it back at the end. Like it goes back and forth about what this team. This guy's just really trying to make the best musicians he can. I think that's his ultimate goal is the music. He wants perfection in the music, but his way of achieving it is despicable.
Agreed.
Anyway, that's it. Those are my bonuses.
Yeah, Steve is gonna.
And I hope I didn't mention the actor on your list.
Nope. Yeah.
If I would have thought of that, I wouldn't even mention them either.
I don't even know if you saw this movie. We never discussed it in conversation, but to wrap up my list, this actually is number 32 on the OG list. So this was added on
the last one on your list.
So it was kind of like scraping the bottom of the barrel because I was like going through, siphoning through all these antagonistic characters in movies. So this was the last one on my original OG list, and I decided to keep it. But this is, I mean, somewhat underwhelming after the list that names we discussed today already. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna go with James McAvoy's performance as the Beast in Split.
Ooh.
And I mean, it's a great movie. It's a great performance by McAvoy. Giving us all these different characters because he suffers from what is it called?
Multiple
personality disorder. Thank you. Yeah. So I think it was up to 23 personalities his character had. But I think
quite an acting performance as well.
He didn't portray all 23, but I mean, still, I think he portrayed 7 or 8, which is extremely impressive because it was believable. Like, he gave each character, each personality, its own little nuance, physicality to each character, the way they dressed, the way they acted, behavior, and then the Beast was the one that was being alluded to throughout the film as like this mythical personality that didn't exist. That's supposed to achieve like peak physical fitness and things of that nature.
Like physical transformation.
Yeah.
Right? Almost like a werewolf.
And this was an M. Night Shyamalan film, so you're already kind of waiting for a twist.
It's coming.
Yeah. And you're thinking, well, is this guy really going to turn into an actual monster, or is it going to be a twist? And the twist was, like, it's still James McAvoy. He doesn't transform into an actual physical being. It's the embodiment of physical strength and his eyes and his veins and things of that nature. A lot of camera work and things, but it looks like he transformed for real.
Nice.
Some angles.
Well, he transformed like for every personality that he was.
Thank you.
He transferred a little bit. Right. I mean, he transformed a bit. A lot.
He does. He does. And
I've never seen the film, but I know.
Oh, you never saw it? Oh, I recommend.
I've seen pieces. I've seen pieces.
Because it's also
even for me.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Because it's also a great, at least for me, it's a great introduction into Anya Taylor-Joy, who you're not familiar with.
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think Queen's Gambit. I've got to see that because that's where she really made her name, right?
She was already who she was before that. That was her first big, I guess, moment. TV show on Netflix. Checked it out for sure. I first came across her in this movie, and I said, "Oh, anything she's gonna be in, she's gonna shine," and she does. And she has her moments where she demands the camera, the audience's attention, just like he does. And even though he's playing 7 to 10 different people, so it's a great movie. The Beast is a formidable foe and antagonist, yeah, and he pops up again in Glass, which is like the completion of this Unbreakable trilogy. It's Unbreakable, Split, and then Glass.
As we're mentioning Unbreakable, I wanted to mention that Mr. Glass from Unbreakable was someone that I did see on other people's list as a great antagonist. Do you consider him to be on a similar level as McAvoy?
Yeah, because he was killing people to find the guy. Like you're at the.
But we never see that. I mean, where it's alluded to in newspaper clippings and things, right?
Yeah, because at the end, Bruce Willis figures it out. Like, he's the one that plants the bomb on the train. He's the one that blew up this airplane. Yeah. He's actively committing acts of terrorism to find this one guy, the nemesis. Yes.
To find his office.
Crazy. Great reveal at the end.
Yeah. But all right, that's it. That's our list. The top 10 antagonists of in movie history all time. I don't. I think our list. I think I'd be safe to say our top 10 antagonists because we did go some deep cuts there that probably wouldn't be on most people's list. But that's the reason why you tune in, right? And remember that these lists are always subjective, so everyone has their opinion, and we want to hear yours. So after hearing this, this is what I find really fascinating about our podcast is that I think one of the great appeals for me about doing this podcast is that everybody has their own list and they're all different and they're all unique just like ours are, and I'm really happy that you're here to listen to what ours are. Now we want to hear what yours are, so please respond in however you can, however you heard this or on our YouTube channel, I would assume at some point, right? That you put in the comment section or email back to us what your top 10 list is so we can look at yours and maybe we can start a little discussion about that, right, Mike?
Yeah, for sure. That'd be cool to get a completely separate list from ours, and then we could come and do like a part two of whatever list, but it's based on what the fans
That's
said.
true. Hey, dude, I'd love to come back and revisit it and say, this person, thank you for listening. And here's his, or her top 10 list really quickly. Bam, 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 bam. And maybe discuss a little bit about that. I think that would be a fun show to do.
Yeah.
We could do like an all top 10 viewer submission pod. And we just talk about viewer submitted lists. So that'd be a great little podcast.
I'm down. Yeah.
do it
So,
too.
so y'all make that happen. Thank you guys again for listening. Thank you for those that have continued to stick with us through this journey. Again, shout out to the first time listeners. If this is something you liked, I mean, this is kind of what our thing is, movies. And so, if this is your first time, like, share, subscribe, and
We'd appreciate it.
yeah, and come back for the next episode because we're not going to stop anytime soon.
That's right, and so you'll see you the next time we publish here, and we thank you again for listening. Take care.
Peace.